This week, join FanDuel TV on track live from Churchill Downs for special racing coverage with our talents' best bets. Plus, expert opinions on all the contenders for the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby. FanDuel TV is your home for exclusive news, workout analysis, and handicapping insight leading to the Run for the Roses. Tune in for Derby Week action and info right here on FanDuel TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Kentucky Derby Handicappers preview show here with FanDuel. I'm Christina Blacker, joined by Matt Bernier and Larry Collmus. We are very proud partners of Churchill Downs and of the Kentucky Derby, and it is certainly getting more and more exciting each and every day. Matt, to add to the excitement, a little weather overnight last night, keeping us on our toes as we get closer to that first Saturday in May.
Yeah, unfortunately, as far as racing today on Tuesday is concerned, no turf action, but I'm here at the track right now. The main track looks fabulous. I'm going to expect we are going to be fast by first post.
Larry, this track does dry out very quickly. You certainly know that. And from calling several derbies over the last few years, I'd imagine that this is one of the busiest and most exciting times of the year for you.
Yeah, and hopefully that weather will be okay later this week, because it's a lot easier to call the Kentucky Derby on a fast track than it is on a sloppy track. But there are a few horses out there that might move up and like that slop. And I'm looking forward to those 2 days on Friday and Saturday, and hopefully we'll have some good weather and some great racing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and something worth remembering, whether we're talking about, racing on the main track or on the turf. There are some folks that do want these types of off conditions. And so factor that into your handicapping. We do encourage you to participate, to join in the conversation, jump into the chat if you have any questions for us. We'll get to those towards the end of the program. We're going to give you some analysis of each and every horse in this year's Kentucky Derby. Let's start quickly with the field and take a look at the runners that will line up for Derby 150. A lot has been made of Fierceness drawing post 17. Matt, I'll start with you. Is that a concern for our morning line favorite?
No, if anything, I think it's a benefit, Christina, being drawn toward the outside. I think you let the speeds to the inside kind of go. You park yourself 3-4 wide if you're John Velasquez, and you hope for the California Chrome to justify the American Pharoah trip at the top of the lane. You try to kick away.
A lot of attention also, Larry, on that first page for Sierra Leone. In the last several years, we started to want to look for the profile of a horse that fits a little bit closer to the pace or sits a little closer to the pace. Is a deep closer in general, whether it's Sierra Leone or any other horse, a win candidate in your eyes this year?
Absolutely, especially Sierra Leone. He has consistently shown us that he brings his A game every single time. And I think the pace is going to be very lively in the Kentucky Derby, as it has been in recent years. And that is a big help for Sierra Leone. The big question mark for him is whether that post position number 2 is going to create too much early traffic for him to have to deal with. But I'm more concerned about a post position for a front running type horse than I am for a dead closer. And I agree with Matt. 17 for Fierceness is outstanding. I know no horse in the Derby history has won from 17, but that's just a coincidence.
Joaquin Jaime did the legwork on that, showing us all those long shots that have left from post position 17. So maybe not as big of a concern as we're sure many of you will hear over the days leading up to the Kentucky Derby. Okay, let's jump right into it. We're going to go horse by horse, give you detailed information on every contender in this year's Kentucky Derby. Matt, we start with Dornoch, the full brother to last year's winner, Mage.
We heard from trainer Danny Gargan the goal was to keep his face clean here in this year's Derby. Guess what? Breaking from post position 1, Larry, they have no choice. He's going right to the front.
It's not a good post for Dornoch for sure. He's committed now. He's going to have to go to the front end. We're watching the Fountain of Youth last time out. Yes, he won that race, but he didn't beat much. And there were a lot of scratches that day. He came back in the Bluegrass and was a 4th place finisher in there and just didn't really play a big role. I think it's a very tough spot for him on Saturday.
The one thing I think about Dornoch is that he thrives on the inside. You look at his works in the mornings. When he's on the rail, that's when he's at his best. You go back to the Remsen when he battled back with Sierra Leone. He was buried along the inside where other horses don't like to be. Dornoch has that fight that if he can see you, he wants to beat you, part of his heart. And I think that serves him very well in the Derby. Sierra Leone, the 2-horse, Larry, we touched on him already. Chad Brown and Tyler Gaffleone looking for their first Derby wins.
And you just mentioned Dornoch and the Remsen. He's the only horse to beat Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone would have been undefeated except for that nose defeat to Dornoch, but here he is in the bluegrass and making that big run from off the pace that he likes to do. He is going to be far behind, start to make that run on the far turn, and look for him to come rolling late. He's just a model of consistency. I like everything that I've seen about him, and I think he's going to be very, very competitive, if not the winner of the Derby this year.
I mean, my only knock is everyone talks about the trip for fierceness. The same applies for Sierra Leone, if not more so. Coming from the back of the pack, we always talk about it with the Derby. You're at the mercy of pace and trip, not questioning his talent. It's just you got to determine how short is too short. To me, anywhere close to that 3-1, 7-2 is just too short on a horse like this.
Well, looking back at his replays, and you touched on that, Remsen, I think it's when he's being corrected is when he doesn't really, use himself well, and he does have that bad habit of getting in a little bit. We move ahead to Mystic Dan, and Matt, I mentioned the weather kind of kicking off our conversation here. There is an opportunity for an off track on Saturday, and he would love it.
Yeah, obvious move up. We're taking a look at that win in the Southwest 2 starts back, a 101 Beyer speed figure. If he does that, he is certainly a player in this race. My only concern, Larry, that's really the only race on his page to me that makes him a contender in here.
Yeah, all the other races are basically too slow numbers-wise for sure, man. I agree with that. And all of a sudden in the Southwest, he just explodes and just runs that terrific race, comes back in the Arkansas Derby and a non-threatening third. So I just think that, yes, he would move big time up if it comes up muddy. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough task for him against this quality of field.
Love to see him out there with his regular rider, Brian Hernandez Jr., who will be aboard in the Derby. Brian does such a great job. One of my favorite riders to watch year in, year out. The 4, Catching Freedom, the first of 3 from Brad Cox's barn, the winner, Matt, of the Louisiana Derby.
Look, I think this is a major threat in here. If you like Sierra Leone, I think you kind of have to like a horse like this as well, who's likely to be 3 times the price of Sierra Leone. You can see him in that Louisiana Derby, finally putting it all together in the afternoons, coming home with that big rush on the outside. Larry, another one. If the pace heats up, he's in with a chance.
Yeah, and the pace will be heated up, I think, for sure in this race. I can't see them walking on the front end in the Kentucky Derby, especially with Dornoch drawing the rail, track phantom and fierceness. And I just think they'll be rolling early on. And if that's the case, be looking for Catching Freedom coming down the stretch. And Matt, yes, I agree. The fact that he's going to be a lot better priced than Sierra Leone is something to watch out for, and a horse to play, especially in trifectas or even in exactas, because I think he's going to be a player.
Up next, the 5-horse Catalytic for Safi Joseph, the son of Catalina Cruiser. Look, I know someone had to finish second to Fierceness in the Florida Derby, Larry, but I think when you consider that this was his first 2-turn race, you have to upgrade the effort a little bit.
You certainly do. And I think the fact that he's by Catalina Cruiser and also the way he's built, I know Andy Biancone brought this up at Gulfstream, he wants to go longer. And he really ran a very nice race in the Florida Derby. He beat everybody else pretty soundly in there. So you really can't knock that effort. He's only had 3 lifetime starts. He's only had 1 career win at Gulfstream back in October. But Matt, I think he's a nice horse, but not on Saturday.
I hope the tunes in the background aren't going to drown me out here. But Catalytic, I think he's actually a threat to hit the board. The talent is there. The question is, obviously, is this a little bit too much too soon? But we've seen lightly raced horses perform well here just based on quality alone. I think he's right there.
Up next is Just Steel for the coach, Hall of Famer D. Wayne Lucas, a 4-time Derby winner, with the rookie Keith Asmussen riding his very first Kentucky Derby. Matt, he has the most experience. He is certainly fit, but is he good enough?
Well, if you're a thoroughbred player, he certainly is. He's got a couple of big numbers on his page. My only concern, and Christina, you and I texted about it yesterday, more and more I look at Arkansas Derby Day, I think outside's where you wanted to be. So numbers a little bit inflated. He was actually on the best part of the track, in my opinion.
You know, he's a really talented horse. And here's the question. He lost the Arkansas Derby to Muth. What would Muth's odds be in the Kentucky Derby? He'd be certainly the favorite or the second choice, I think, if he was in the Derby. So I think you got to give just steal a lot of credit. He kicked everybody else a long way back, and he really was very impressive in the Arkansas Derby behind Muth. So I think he's okay. And what a story, the 88-year-old trainer and the 25-year-old jockey.
Honor Marie up next. Whit Beckman has his first Kentucky Derby starter. Also, Ben Curtis comes over from Ireland, rides the winter at the fairgrounds, does so well, he decides to stay. And talk about an exciting first season. Larry, now he has a Derby mount with this horse that I think is becoming a bit of the buzz horse.
Yeah, people are starting to talk about Honor Marie and a nice effort in the Louisiana Derby running behind Catching Freedom in there. He's another one that likes to come from well off the pace, and I think, Matt, he'll get some benefit from a hot pace, and if they roll early on, he's going to be tough. I mean, his races on dry tracks have been extremely consistent.
Every year, there's a horse that touts themselves in the morning. I think Honor Marie is the one this year. I'm going to pick him second. I think he's going to come with his run. Maybe you're not going to get the big number. I think he's 20-1 on the morning line. He's probably going to be closer to 10 or 12 based on the buzz, but I think he's going to come with his run. And the other thing, too, that we haven't really talked about much, he thrives here at Churchill Downs. It's not just the training in the morning. His overall record here at Churchill is spectacular. So I think he's a major threat to hit the board.
Yeah, I think that really contributes to the buzz-worthy ability of Honor Marie is that record here at Churchill. He's also running third off the layoff. It's a nice race in the form cycle. Whit Beckman worked for Todd Pletcher for a long time. He's been here before as an assistant, first time saddling his own Derby runner. Just a touch up next. Matt, the longer I look at the numbers in here for Brad Cox, he's highly rated on time form. He's highly rated on Thoroughgraph. Is Just a Touch a little bit of a sleeper that we're forgetting about and should be taking more money?
Yeah, I probably so. And if I'm looking at the horses coming out of the Bluegrass, I actually fancy him a little bit more than Sierra Leone, just simply because he had to go very fast early on and he didn't completely stop. My bigger concern, though, more and more time goes by, and maybe I'm going down the wrong road as they turn the music up. I'm afraid that the Bluegrass is a carbon copy of last year's with Tapit Trice and Verifying. I don't know if Just a Touch really wants to go this far, and Tapit Trice is at the mercy of pace and trip, as is this year's Sierra Leone.
Yeah, he could be. You could compare him to Tapit Trice, or you could compare him to Mage, because he certainly looked pretty darn good. In that Bluegrass Stakes, ran second like Mage did in the Florida Derby. So yeah, I mean, he's a nice horse. But 3 starts, Mage did it. I don't know if Just a Touch could do it, but he's certainly a contender.
I take a different approach with him as far as the distance goes. The more I look at his races, the more I categorize him as one of those high cruising speed, even types. The more I'm starting to think Belmont with this horse. He just keeps coming at that steady clip. Just a Touch, the son of Justify, making just his 4th start. How about another one from Brad Cox's barn? Larry, I think Encino is going to be my long shot. When you consider that the Lexington was his first race on the main track and how good he looks this week, this horse is really thriving right now.
Yeah, he's another buzz horse in the morning this week for sure that folks have been talking about. I know Mike Welsh from the Racing Form said some really good things about how he's looked in the morning. And like you said, that was his first race on dirt in the Lexington, and he won it, and he won it in pretty good style. So obviously he's on the improve. He's going the right way. And he, too, would be not a big shock in the Kentucky Derby.
He's very versatile as well. I like that he won last time on the lead. He's also proven himself from off of it. I agree with you, Christina. He's a horse that I'm going to be using in the Superfecta underneath. I don't know if he's quite good enough to win, but I wouldn't be stunned at all if he hit the board with Axel Concepcion aboard.
Yeah, I hear some big handicappers looking his way. Encino for Brad Cox, and a homebred out of that nice mare, Glittering Jewel. We have a pair of horses from Japan. This is a look at T.O. Password. Matt, he's one that has really, I think, taken his time adjusting here to Churchill Downs. I do have a concern about him, not only on ability, but just being able to handle the atmosphere. You can see how warm he is just in his gallops in the morning.
I couldn't agree more. I think the quality is a little bit of a question mark. I think the one thing that you probably can bank on with this horse is pace. I think he's another element that they're going to use him early on, and if by default he effectively becomes a rabbit for his buddy Forever Young, I don't think anybody would be too concerned by that or too upset by that. T.O. Password, to me, Larry, he's part of the equation. I don't think he's part of the outcome.
I don't think he's got much of a chance at all in this race, especially compared to the other Japanese runner. But yeah, he could he could be a part of that early pace. And if he is, and this guy that we're looking at right now will be one of the ones that could benefit from that. He's 5 for 5, Christina.
Yeah, speaking of, so here he is, forever young, for trainer Yoshito Yahagi, a trainer who's won 2 Breeders' Cups, a trainer who's won a Saudi Cup. If anyone from Japan is going to come win the Kentucky Derby, from a trainer's perspective, it feels like it's going to be this guy. The horse is undefeated. But Larry, my concern is he wears this hood because apparently he doesn't like kickback. Well, guess what? There's going to be plenty of kickback in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it's unavoidable. And if they try to avoid it by taking the overland route, he's going to lose too much ground and he's not going to be able to win. So, he's going to have to deal with the kickback. I've heard that he's doing a little bit better in the morning with it. So we'll see how that plays. He's obviously got the talent. He's a very, very good horse.
This to me, we talk about the Japanese coming over here, and this is still one of the big races that they haven't yet won. If you have issues with fierceness or you're worried about the trip with Sierra Leone, on paper, Forever Young is as good as anyone, if not better. So I think he's a major threat.
Track Phantom up next for Hall of Famer Steve Asmussen. Asmussen 0 for 25 in the Derby. He was so close with Epicenter a couple of years ago. Matt, they add blinkers to this horse, and the more that I look at him, I like him, but I worry that the distance is going to be a bit of a question mark. I know he's bred to do it, but he doesn't seem to really finish off his races like some of the others.
Yeah, I have that concern as well, Christina. The other concern I have is I just don't think he's gotten appreciably better. I think he was a nice, precocious early one, and he's just sort of maintained that form. Unfortunately, everybody else has caught up and passed him. He's not for me.
Not for me either, Matt. I will say that I expect him to be out on the lead, if not the sole front runner, be a part of what could be a wicked pace that could lead to some closers to pick up the pieces late. But I don't think he's going to be able to get the distance. And I think the Keith Asmussen's got a better shot to win the Derby than his dad does this year.
Wouldn't that be the story if he does before his dad's able to get there on the first Saturday in May? The 13 horse West Saratoga, one of the biggest prices on the board. He is 50 to 1 on the morning line. And Larry, this is a horse that's very useful. He's very workmanlike. He gets a piece of it. He tries hard every time, but he does really need to jump up if he's going to surprise this field.
I'll tell you what, if anyone is going to move up in the mud, it's going to be this guy. He's by Exaggerator, who was a mud lark. He only liked the mud. His offspring have been like that. They love the mud. West Saratoga's had 10 lifetime starts. Every single one was on a fast, dry track. So if it rains, it gets wet, who knows? This guy could pull off some sort of a Derby shocker. Matt, he's certainly bred to do so. What we've seen so far, though, probably a cut below.
I mean, look, this would rival a Rich Strike kind of shocker. Now, it would be a fantastic story given the connections, given the purchase price, the whole 9 yards. But just if I'm being brutally honest, I just think he's way up against it talent-wise.
Next up is the 14 horse Endlessly, the son of Oscar Performance. He's been brilliant in many of his races, but all of his races have either come on the turf or on the synthetic. He tries the main track for the first time in the Kentucky Derby. Matt, do you think he can handle the dirt?
I don't. Talent-wise, I actually would rank him one of the more talented runners in this year's race, but the training in the mornings has left a bit to be desired. It's gotten a little bit better recently, but I don't think in my heart of hearts that he's a dirt horse here, Larry. I think he's going to be a very good grass horse down the road. I don't like him Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a grass horse, a synthetic horse. And it seemed like Michael McCarthy was kind of indicating he thinks that too. But I guess the owners were like, let's give it a shot, and you only have so many chances to play in the Kentucky Derby. So let's see how he handles the dirt. I don't think he'll handle it very well.
And Leslie and Berta Rispoli, his regular rider, will be in the saddle. The 15 horse domestic product for Chad Brown. Chad Brown has not won the Derby, but he has a great record in terms of how his horses have performed. We've already talked about the stablemate Sierra Leone. Larry, domestic product won the Tampa Bay Derby, the non-wagering event. There was a lot going on that day. But 4 horses came on the wire together in this race. How highly do you rate the Tampa Bay Derby against some of the other preps?
I think it might be the least of all of them. I don't think that field was very good at all. and his numbers are not that good. He seems like he's a cut below. He's obviously got some ability, but he's not for me, Matt. I mean, the one good thing he's got going for him is Irad Ortiz, but I think he would have to be a miracle worker. I just don't think this horse is good enough.
I do think he deserves a little bit of credit for rallying the way that he did into that slow pace in the Tampa Bay Derby. It was basically run as a turf race where they crawled early and they sprinted home, and that's why you wound up with that 4-horse photo. I don't think talent-wise he's quite as good as some of the others, but if you're a try or a super player, why can't he grab a piece of this thing at 30 or 40 to 1?
He's a fighter too. That's one thing I've noticed about domestic product. He likes to kind of really get into it and belly down out there. Grand Mo the first, the 16 horse, another big long shot in here. He's a 2-time winner, Matt, but both of those wins have come on synthetic.
Yeah, and we're looking right back at the Tampa Bay Derby, kind of the same deal as far as domestic product is concerned. I have a little bit more faith in domestic product's ability to finish in a spot like this. I wish nothing but the best for the connections here with Grand Mo the first. They got in very late in the game, but I don't think he's good enough to win.
No, I don't think he's even close to being good enough to win this race. I think he's totally up against it, against this field. And, he was soundly beaten in the Florida Derby. Couldn't win the Tampa Bay Derby. He's not for me, Christina.
One more look at Grand Mo the first there. Emasil Jaramillo will be aboard for the Barbosa barn, a son of Uncle Mo. He'd be another one that would appreciate a little bit of moisture out there potentially as he enters at 50 to 1, big price towards the outside of the field. Up next, we get to our favorite. The 17 is Fierceness, as mentioned. Todd Pletcher, Johnny Velasquez, a Hall of Famer, teaming up in here. Larry, which Fierceness do we get? I feel like that's the impossible question to answer, but it is the one that every handicapper has to ask themselves as you make your selection.
The one we're looking at right now, if he shows up like he did in Hallandale Beach that day, they're all running for second. He just trounced the field in the Florida Derby, ran a speed figure so much better than everybody else in this race. But then in the Holy Bull, non-factor. Little bit of problem at the start. Not that big of a deal. He just didn't run very well that day. He didn't like the slop in the champagne, apparently. So yeah, he's seems like he's in every other, but they better hope he's not in every other, because this would be a bad one on that streak. So Matt, I don't know what to do with him. I didn't know what to do before the Florida Derby, and I don't know what to do with him now.
He's the only horse I'm using on top. Simply put, he's lengths faster than this group when he shows up. As you take a look at Stronghold, the last thing I'll say about Fierceness, keep an eye on him in the gate. If he's settled, he's going to run.
That's what's scary, though. You got to wait till that last second. Your wagers are in by the time you know what Fierceness is going to do. Stronghold up next from Southern California, your Santa Anita Derby winner. Matt, I just love the way Phil D'Amato has managed this horse. He has called every shot right. And for a perennial leading trainer out there, it shows how difficult it is to get to the Kentucky Derby. This is his first Derby starter.
I think he's a good horse. I think he's underrated. He's a little bit light on speed figures, but he's paired up tops in his last two, and I like how gritty he is. He's really done nothing wrong on the racetrack. Again, as a win candidate, I think he's probably up against it, but I see no reason why he can't improve and hit the board here, Larry.
Yeah, he's just got to be a little bit faster and run better numbers than he's run so far. I thought the Santa Anita Derby was kind of a weak group out there this year, and he certainly did it in a gutsy way, but he's going to have to step up his game, I think, to beat some of these horses on Saturday, Christina.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Muth went to Arkansas. Maymoon didn't show up. Nysos didn't show up. It was a different group for Stronghold on the West Coast. Two more left in this field. Resilience, the 19 for Hall of Famer Bill Mott. He is one of the absolute best, Larry, at getting a horse to peak at the right time. If he does peak, is Resilience good enough?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he needs to be a little bit better than we've seen so far. Again, I thought the Wood Memorial was kind of a weaker type of a race, and he did it in good style. But obviously, John Velasquez had an easy decision to go to Fierceness, and Junior Alvarado, who has had so much success this year, and especially for Bill Mott, has picked up the mount. I ran into Junior the other day, Matt, and at the gift shop at Churchill, and he said he thought Resilience was doing very, very well. So we'll see what happens.
The one thing I will say, the Wood was the first time he had been equipped with blinkers, and if you watch the entirety of the replay, he was never a loser of that race. He certainly needs to improve. I'm going to key him underneath. I think he can absolutely finish second, third, or fourth here on Saturday afternoon.
One more towards the outside, Society Man for Danny Gargan, 2 in the field for Danny Gargan. And what are the chances of trying the rail and the outside? Big part of the story here, Matt, of course, is Frankie Dettori in the Derby.
Yeah, he's going to have to work his magic from the outside. We're going to take a look again at the Wood and the stretch run. He's going to need to improve by leaps and bounds, I think, to even be capable of hitting the board in a spot like this. Combine that with the 20 draw, Larry, is not for me.
He was 106 to 1 in the Wood Memorial. It was a monster price in there, and he ran well. He ran well enough to get into this race. Frankie Dettori is a great story, and it's always good to have him involved. But yeah, Society Man, I think, is in a tough spot. And Danny Gargan's, what did I do wrong? How did I get 1 and 20? That's just wrong.
I asked one of the owners, the West Paces Racing Group has a piece of Dornoch and of West Society. And I said, what are the chances of you guys drawing the rail on the outside? And he said, about the chances of us having 2 Derby horses. That's how it happened. So good luck to them trying to negotiate that. Matt and Larry, fast and furious, really appreciate all of your insight and analysis. Hopefully it helps those of you at home to choose your Derby horse however you want to play them. But don't forget to take advantage of the No Sweat Win Bet, up to $20. It's available for you with us here at FanDuel. And as I always say, maximize those promos to the best of your ability. Use your price for that first No Sweat bet. And if you want to make a few other wagers, do so as well and wager early. It will be a very busy day and a huge week as we have 5-0 Tuesday, Champions Day on Wednesday,